What's the critical piece of knowledge for all parents to have with the kids struggling?
Build your kids' trust, and don't take it for granted. And when you ask how they're doing, ask how they're really doing, and don't accept fine as a response.
Chris Coulter, thank you so much for joining me from Ontario.
Hey, Suzanne. How are you?
You're out of Toronto. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
This is a meaningful conversation because you and I connected. What was that, like 2-3 months ago that we had that nice chat on a video call, and I've been following your work. So I want to talk to you today about navigating the mental health challenges with all of our loved ones. Like for you, it was Maddie, which we're going to get into. But I just feel that there's such a gap, and I feel that you've become an expert.
Well, you when you're put into a situation, you put on your survivor skills, and you learn very quickly.
Yeah. So tell me about yourself. You can start with family or work.
Well, there's a very distinct path without going back to my childhood. Back in 2008, I had a successful business with a partner and I. And we ended up getting decimated by the 2008 financial crisis. Right. So we hung on for a couple of years, basically burning through all the retained earnings and cash we had in the business. And ultimately, in February of 2010, decided to shut it down. And then from there, thinking, okay, that was kind of my nest egg. I had 20 years of sweat equity. And I walked away with nothing. And I was kind of disenchanted with the whole office furniture business, which was the industry I was in. And so I said, I'm going to just do a career about face. So I decided, let's change careers instead of staying in the same furniture business. So I did. And then I got separated. Went through a nasty divorce. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to start my own business up again because, you know what? Going through a nasty divorce, it wasn't enough. So anyway, that ended up becoming a very emotionally draining time for me. And I think it also contributed significantly to the loss of my 14-year-old daughter, Maddie, to suicide. So it's been a pretty interesting last 15 years for me.
This might be a hard question, and I can delete this if you want to. I've always wondered this because I hear of nasty divorces. I've got a friend, by the way, who just, I kid you not, spent $1 million on a divorce. I'm not kidding, $1 million. And reconciling that with then your kids, and it just feels so mucky and challenging to put those together.
I won't get into this on here, but yeah, it's unfortunate that parents can't stay above everything else for the sake of their kids, and it gets nasty, it gets personal, it gets ugly, and no one wins except for the person who's got the deeper pockets.
Yeah, and the lawyers.
Well, and the lawyers, yeah, for sure. But anyway, that is it decimates families, but it ruins kids. And the big thing is because a lot of kids, it's probably the biggest. A lot of kids' first exposure to grief, like they haven't been taught how to grieve, so that is a big challenge. So they've got all this pent up emotion, they don't know how to deal with it, and it just unfortunately goes in a very bad place.
Hey, I have seen this, and I have no stone to throw. I've just observed this as a teacher, right? Would be 28 years right now teaching and watching just the deep, like cellular rage of one parent to the next with events that happen and what leads up, and that you see that in education. We see what comes in, and I've had parents that won't even meet together, and I've had other parents where they've somehow managed to, we're still in this together. That that is hard. That's a whole other discussion. Such a complex issue.
It's
I don't
funny
mean to,
how someone you've decided to spend the rest of your life with all of a sudden goes from the most important person to the most despised person. And it
it's so
is
hard. Yeah, yeah.
frightening how emotionally complex it is. And I've been able to
Hmm.
reconcile a lot of things in my life. It's the only thing I haven't been able to.
Okay. No, I get that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Reconciling that seems so hard. Okay, let's talk about Maddie. So your daughter died it was 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah. April
2015.
2015.
Okay. She drives you. Like she drives what you're doing now that we're going to get into after
Yeah.
your work with mental health. But what do you want to tell me about Maddie?
Maddie she was my firstborn. She was the first girl in our family for a few generations. So she was revered as the golden child
Mm.
for that reason by grandparents. She was really smart. She was super funny. She had this guttural laugh that just I remember hearing something similar, and those are the little details that you don't realize that disappear. It's like her
Oh.
laugh, and you forget the intimate laugh that she had. And I remember being stopped in my tracks by some complete stranger who had a laugh that was identical to Maddie, and it literally, my stomach went into my gut.
Oh, yeah.
So she was phenomenal that way. She was super kind, and I think that was probably her most redeeming quality. She wasn't one of those kind of mean girls, those conforming to the popular opinion. She had very distinct values and opinions, and she wasn't afraid to express it. And as a
Mm.
consequence, she stood up to bullies, not on behalf of herself, because she was really popular. She stood up on behalf of kids who couldn't actually stand up for themselves.
Mm.
And when she passed, I received a whole bunch of just special notes and stories that people wanted to share, just the acts of kindness that she had shown these individuals. And as a consequence, she is kind of my motivation to do all the work that I do.
Yeah. I want to get into the work that you're doing, but first, I want to talk about, if you're okay with going back to this, the glimpses of what was happening with her in terms of then what we can learn from that. What were the glimpses of her challenges that led up to the suicide?
I think the biggest contributor, I think, was our divorce. And
Okay.
how she was brought into as a pawn and it put her in an impossible situation. And I didn't want to go down that road at all. And anyway, that was certainly that was a sign. There was signs there that she was like put in. She told me, I feel like I'm put in an impossible situation, and
Mm,
it just was heart wrenching.
yeah.
Changing schools, moving, all this stuff, it just weighs on a kid, especially if they
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to process emotions, which they
Mm-hmm.
don't teach,
No.
and not really kind of aware of what was going on at the time. I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of limited in my capacity, although once I realized what was going on, I certainly stepped up and tried to figure out everything I could. She did see a therapist, and which I think was helpful to some extent, but it was just I don't know. I'm not sure when it happened. The divorce certainly impacted it. The moves, the new school. I don't know. There's a lot of contributing factors that probably never were properly processed,
Mm.
and it metabolized into terrible depression for her.
Was okay. So it was the depression then that was the trajectory. The reason I asked this question, like I'm really wanting to be so sensitive to your past and your experience, but the reason I asked the question is I want to know then what did you need at the time, either for supports or information that you either didn't know that you need or that you wanted?
We leaned on the hospital system here because that was
Mm.
where the only place you could go for acute care, and it's intended for acute purposes only. But because Maddie was so loved within the psychiatric unit, they let her extend her stay. First time was 10 days, and the second time was almost 2 months.
Was that an acute unit or a
She was
unit?
in a psychiatric unit.
Okay.
Challenge was trying to find kind of the intermediary agencies, intermediary care after the hospitals. So there isn't a lot. There's private treatment if you've got the means, and a lot of those are in Canada. A lot of them are drug and addiction related, not necessarily depression related. Or you can go to the US, and the US has lots, but it also costs you a lot as well. Mm-hmm. So I would say that the biggest challenge we experienced was being able to find some place after the hospital to be able to deal with a child that was clearly struggling.
Mm-hmm. You mean in the public system that you have?
In the public system, yeah.
Yeah. You know, something that hit me like a ton of bricks, like a huge aha moment in an interview, well, a series of interviews I did in August. I interviewed a couple that lost their daughter to suicide. And then also I interviewed a dialectical behavior therapy clinician who does DBT, is kind of, as you know, the gold standard when we're dealing with suicidation. And here's what I had never considered, is that schools refer, first of all, at least counselors in BC. And by the way, our recommended ratio is 1 counselor to 250 kids. We are up to, in this province, 1 to over 900. And they refer out, but the agencies that they refer to are public, of course. And it's the newest kids on the block that go there. Because what happens is once you've had your experience as a clinician, as a counselor, or even a social worker, you go into private practice where you're making 6 times more. So it struck me with our public system that I think is important to talk about is that we're using a system that we don't even recognize is not properly positioned. And I don't mean that of any practitioner, but we're sending too many to the newest, practitioners. And I don't know if I've said this to you before. It's like sending me to the brand new cardiac surgeon for a triple bypass, but not just me. You're sending 100 of me at the same time.
Yeah. Well, there's a really easy response to that. And unfortunately, I've been fighting this for a while, as a lot of people have. Everyone's focus is on remediation. And the challenge shouldn't be remediation, it should be prevention. And we have the tools and technology to make it happen within the school systems, within the government works. And yet, I don't know what the challenge is. I'm not trying to minimize the amount of work that it's going to take. But the problem is there's no accountability or transparency within the school system with regards to mental health. So you could be the worst provider or the best provider, and really there's no distinction between the two. So that's where I think there's a huge opportunity to be able to rate schools on their mental health performance, and not do it from the standpoint of the schools, but do it from the standpoint of the kids, the ones who actually need it. So actually getting them to survey and respond on behalf of their schools, and not with the intention of shaming, but with the intention of propping up. We want to celebrate the schools who are doing a really great job. But what we also want to do is those who are lagging behind, or those that don't have the resources or the understanding or the competency in that area, let's start using some benchmarking to be able to elevate these schools that don't have great mental health programs. Because if we're waiting for the government or the school boards to do something, it's never going to happen.
No.
And that's the bottom line. And when I'm sick of all the political pandering that constantly gets thrown around, everyone promises, and especially as we're coming into an inevitable federal election, and we're having a provincial election in Ontario in the next couple of months, everyone's throwing around the, hey, mental health dollars, here you go. But there isn't a plan. That's my fundamental beef.
Okay, because you're actually answering my question. I've got number 4 here. You
Okay.
just answered. My question was, what do you see broken in our system? So do you see education and how we work with mental health in schools more broken than our public system of mental health care? And why or not?
I don't think it's so much the school system. School system is what the school system is. I think it's our inability to teach emotional intelligence, quite frankly. I think it's our, I'm not pushing this entirely on the schools because the schools aren't responsible ultimately for our kids. Parents have to own this too. Parents we can point the finger at the schools, but at the end of the day, the parents are the one ultimately responsible. The problem with parenting today, especially dealing with the emotional challenges our kids are going, we're relying upon the way we were raised when we were growing up and using the tactics that our parents used on us, which is consequences, reprimands, rules, tight ship. Whereas parenting today has got to be a lot more collaborative. I think it's not a one vote, one person, one vote. At the end of the day, the parents are still ultimately they're in charge, and that has to be existent. But there's a long way we need to come with this. So
I 100% agree with you that parents are stepping up and parents are first. However, I do this in my presentations. From kindergarten to grade 12, Canadian kids spend 15,000 hours in schools. Hours and hours and hours. And what I've argued is, people say there shouldn't be mental health in schools. And I've said, whether we like it or not, though, it is. And we are in a position as educators that this is right in front of us. And so I put a little bit more responsibility on schools, but that's contentious. And I'm not trying to diminish either, though, the role of parents in parenting their kids and supporting their kids. But these kids are at school sometimes more than at home.
But it's not just in schools and classrooms. It can be in play where you understand about empathy and conflict resolution. And there are lots of opportunities for things like that, especially at a young age.
Well, so here's a little sad story for you. I'm supposed to next Friday be presenting at a nearby school district here. I gave them 4 options to present, the work that I do. And the Pro-D committee chose understanding youth wellness. Okay, mental health, sorry. Understanding youth mental health. That's what they chose. They said our teachers need to learn this. And it's from my PhD research. It's from my time at a psych unit. It's experiential. What are the kids saying about all of these different challenges that they face? Chris, they have canceled my presentation because teachers have not signed up. They're not signing up. We're dealing with assessment practices here in BC. We have new assessment that it's I won't even get going into it. It's just challenging for teachers. We're dealing with AI. Districts around me are choosing AI. That's the focus this year is AI. And so part of my lens is they're not actually choosing to learn about it, but I get it because of all the other things that are thrown onto them that they're dealing with right now. And I argue it's number one, but you're constantly kiboshed with a list of things in the classroom.
Can I talk about kind of the backstory of our program MindGrade?
Well, MindGrade's up here as the next question, so you can jump to question number 8. Yes, that's fine. Talk about MindGrade. You're holding schools accountable for supporting students' mental health, giving youth a voice in creating real change. Go.
So it took me a long time after Maddie's death to just be able to have a conversation, let alone get my head out of my grieving state. But eventually, I think about after I did a lot of writing for those first 5-6 years, and then someone approached me about getting involved with a social emotional learning program called How Are You Feeling? And I looked at it. It was really different than anything I've seen. It taught kids how to understand and process their emotions. And they did it in a way that was really fun and friendly. They used clips of TV and movies to be able to depict certain emotions so kids could watch it and relate really, really well. And so anyway, it was a big commitment. It was a 24 episode, 12-hour commitment, which we moderated. And one particular group that we ran through were 8 girls from a very prestigious private school in Toronto. Mm-hmm. They all said, and this is ranging in age from approximately, I think they were 14 to 17 years old. And after the last moderated session, they said, this program changed our life. And like they could say, literally, you could tell it affected them. And that's when a teenage girl says something changed your life, you better like sit up.
You listen.
Right?
Yep.
So they said, we want to be able to advocate on behalf of the program. What can we do? So I said, listen, go talk to your principal, administrator, wellness counselors. Tell them what you got out of the program. Well, the interesting thing is, part of the process is we do a pre and a post survey, and 95% of the kids who participate in this said that the mental health programs that they received in school was completely inadequate. They went to their wellness counselor, they went to their administrator and said, this program changed our life. And they said, you know what? We already have our own programs.
Really?
So they kiboshed any further discussions. And anyway, I took a step back. I was livid, mostly because of just the gall, the gumption to be able to do something like that. I haven't used gall or gumption in a sentence today, by the way.
Good word. It's a good word. Good words, both of them.
So I took a step back, and I went to my friend who owns a market research company and another friend who owns a media company, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to start flipping the script. I want there to be better accountability and transparency on mental health programs in schools. And I want that opinion to come from the opinion of the kids. And so we're in the midst of, we're designing this and that's where my research partner is amazing. He's designing something that is going to essentially arrive at a score. And taken by the kids. And so from that, we'll be able to determine whether a school is doing really, really well, needs improvement, or failing miserable. So those are that's kind of MindGrade. We're starting in around Toronto, and then what we're going to do is we're going to extend it hopefully across Canada and throughout.
So what do you do with the information then? Because I was reading about MindGrade that you're holding schools accountable for supporting students' mental health, right?
Yep.
What do you do with that information?
We just use it to arrive at our grade, and then we don't have it shared. But what we will do, if any of these insights we get, we'll give them like a light version of kind of the audit, what came back with regards to what are the kids saying. So areas that they feel that need to be addressed. And then what we can do is we can go and say, well, if you want to do that, here's this program here. Or we have work with a bunch of educational consultants who can assist in something like this. Or I've got so many resources of different social emotional learning companies and other types of resources that can be so invaluable to these schools. That's where we want to get to. So we are going to have a grade for mental health. And I'll say mental and emotional health. Yeah. Because that's an important distinction. Because emotions aren't usually talked about in schools. Not the ones that they should be talking about. Like grief.
So in my opinion, with my experience, your number one asset in all of this, your number one superpower?
What's it?
Parents. Parents drive it. Parents have driven everything. Parents have driven. I've seen changes in education. I started teaching in 1996, and the changes that I've seen happen, and I really feel it's because of parents demanding things from the government, or parenting styles that are actually, I believe, affecting educational practices and policy at our Ministry of Education level. And I think this is, right now, I'll tell you where I live. Guess what parents care about? Academics. I want you to go to Harvard Law. You can't go to the local university here where I live. And they're driving then the academics versus parents saying, we need a collaborative support for our kids. Collaborative.
Thing is, Suzanne, it's not on a sustained basis. You can't have academic achievement without emotional awareness, emotional support. Not on a long-term basis. You can probably soldier through it for a bit, but not long term.
The reason I have gone into the world of social media is I started there with educators, and I have presentations about, let me tell you what the kids say that they need for mental health and wellness. And it also helps your own wellness, but also it affects academics. Like, we know that it's researched. We know that when they're connected more to people, where they're feeling supported, understood, and cared for, that academics are better and kids learn better when they're connected to that human being. However, school districts around me are choosing to learn artificial intelligence over learning how to connect with students. So I've pulled my hair out, and I'm passionate about my profession. I'm passionate about supporting my colleagues, but I'm also sorely disappointed with what I've experienced in the last year and a half of launching my work post PhD research. Sorely disappointed, like shockingly so, actually. So I think that I think parents wanting to see different is powerful, but the problem is that they don't all want to see different. They want their kids into Harvard Law.
Yeah, but they don't understand that will come with emotional consequences.
Absolutely.
And what happens if their kid doesn't get into Harvard Law? How decimated
I know.
are they gonna be, right? It's like these kids just they need to understand kind of all the stuff that it's associated with, like pushing all these emotions down. It just needs a place to go.
Yeah, and we know there's research out even about disconnection. Thomas Fletz at York University, and it just came out a few years ago. It's in the book Never Enough by Jennifer Wallace. Really good one, Never Enough. And he has researched and suggests that a third of our youth do not feel connected to anybody in their community. A third of youth.
AMI Research, the company that I'm working with, same thing. They asked the human connection question, and since 2016, they asked, how many friends do you have? And they asked like 1, 3, 5 or more. And then someone said, how about asking 0 friends? You know what the scary part is? Over 30% said, and this wasn't a COVID, post-COVID thing. This has been a consistent number for the last 8 years that they've been conducting the survey. So it's crazy. Yeah. There are 30% of kids that feel they have no friends. Yeah. No one that they can talk to. Family or friends. Yeah. So right there, though, you're outlining a bit of a problem, because we need parents on board to go to our schools and say, we want more of an emphasis on mental health and wellness. But if a third are disconnected already, it shows the positioning where we're starting from. So one of the things I want to dig in with you today is just this, like, what do we do with mental health? So you have MindGrade for the accountability. We've said that parents, the importance of understanding mental health. And then you also did Mentor Well. Yeah. Which is mentoring, right? For teenagers. Mentoring it's an online mentoring service that it's not for kids who are depressed or have these mental health disorders. It's these kids who might feel a little lost. They lack confidence. They don't have direction. But the important thing that we're going to really emphasize is the emotional intelligence piece. How to emotionally regulate, how to deal with conflict resolution, how to talk with empathy, how to communicate properly. It's just amazing how, if such emphasis and understanding stipulates that emotional intelligence is a single larger driving factor to success than IQ. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
something that with time you can increase.
Yeah.
I think I'd be spending a lot more time in that area. It
Yeah.
just kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so before I always do 3 wrap-up questions to take us back to just our initial talk about like filling in the gaps, but I actually want to know, like, what else do you feel that there is that we need to do in our societies with mental health at every age level? Because I think this is just not only teenagers. I mean, adults are struggling. What needs to happen in this broken system? And you and I didn't even get fully into the mental health public care system. And by the way, like here, I'll say in BC, if you have all the money in the world, you could get good care, private, but it's still a good wait. Like here, to wait for a clinician, if you've got a suicidal child or even a partner, it is a good 4-month wait on the best end to get into dialectical behavior therapy.
Yep. And that's comparable to Ontario as well.
Okay. So what do we, so it's, this is.
So as far as, I think from a mediation perspective, we all know the wait times are ridiculous and the resources are limited. I think one quick way for, and let's just use teenagers and parents. Parents have got to do a much better job of just listening and not trying to kind of do the inquisition. What's going on? They think by forcing them to talk, they're going to just all of a sudden spill out all this truth. So I think a really important thing is for parents just to learn to shut up and to let their child talk to them when they're ready, not to force the issue. Because I think once they start talking and then you jump all over them, it's like, oh, I think if parents did a better job of listening and stop trying to fix and just be a little bit more compassionate and empathetic and be more approachable and relatable, I think their kids would open up to them. And they would let them in on some of these things that are really bugging them. And I know that just seems, I already have a great relationship with my kid. Well, of course, everyone thinks that, but how many parents jump into fix-it mode as soon as they get an opportunity? And I think that's where I felt my relationship with my kids really changed, was when I stopped trying to be in their face all the time. And then once I was able to take a step back and go, you know what, let's just have a conversation and what happens, happens. My boys really, we opened up and the honesty came, and the trust also has to be there. And the problem is parents go, oh, my kids trust me. Well, they don't trust you as much as you think they trust you. And that's a sad state of affairs. Hey, it was no different than when you and I were going through being teenagers. Our friends they reigned supreme, right? So.
Yeah. I think part of a problem though is we parents are busy and we've bought into what our society tells us of how successful we're supposed to be, or I'm going to say as a woman, like, that I can have it all and I can have my career and I could like become CEO and still have kids and still keep my marriage. And I think we've got this rhetoric around us that has parents busier than ever, that they're not stopping to lean in and not stopping to listen. And you get sidetracked with everything else that we're told.
I think parents have to prioritize it because just as an example, we gave parents equal access to that program, that How Are You Feeling program. Okay. We said, listen, watch it with your kids and you'll get a ton out of this. Less than 5% of parents actually took us up on the offer. And this goes into fundamental components of emotional intelligence.
Wow.
And how can you talk to your kids more effectively? And they chose to not do it. So
That
It
that
just,
aligns with me not presenting next week about understanding youth mental health of what I learned at a psychiatric unit. You and I are saying common denominators here of factors of what's happening that our kids are not okay.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, 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 and the problem is parents need to do a better job of stepping up
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and stop saying, oh, that only happens to other families. Guess what? I said the same thing.
And I think calling it is so important to call it. I'm wanting to call teachers. You need to step up to the plate and you need to learn what's going on with our kids because we've got kids that are dying. We have kids that are coming to school sliced up and down and you don't know it. And we have to call that because it's just critical. We're at a critical time.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think. I used to, on the psych unit when I was talking to parents, I would say like, what does your kid want to do? Go do it. Go to get on their level. Go take him for a burger. Go take her to a movie, whatever it is. Because my experience as a parent is when I'm taking my kids out and whatever it is, they don't have to spend money. They've sung like birds to me. Like that's when your connection is like, I'm on your level, not on my level. And that's part of authentic listening, I think.
Car,
It's been
car,
huge.
car rides,
Yeah. Car rides. I know, right?
coffees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I I find with Maddie just watching old time movies
Oh, really? Yeah.
that was
Wow.
kind of our time together, right? And the boys,
Mm-hmm.
it was on our way to and from hockey all the time.
Hmm.
And I never made a point of never talking about hockey. It was their time to talk if they
Right.
wanted to.
Right. So good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I always do 3 wrap-up questions to take us to my first goal of just what do we do with mental health in this culture when I think we're in a broken system. Here's number one. When Maddie was struggling, and from the start of the struggling to the end of the struggling, what is the single piece of information that you needed most? Like obviously looking back now, single piece of information.
Probably just being more acutely aware of any signs that she may have indicated and we didn't pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
Things like I'm tired, spending more time in the room, as opposed to just kind of justifying it as, oh, it's just teenager stuff. You gotta
Yeah,
take you gotta take action.
you do.
And and if you're not listening, and what I used to do with I when I finally figured out that I'm not going to fix everything for her,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I just go in and ask, can I just hang out with you in her bedroom?
Mm,
And that's one way that they would eventually start talking.
yeah, yeah,
And that's where the forming of trust or reforming
yeah,
of trust occurs, right?
yeah. Can I add to that?
Of course.
I had a aha moment. Well, it was the same interview I've referred to. It's a podcast interview with David and Laura Donovan. And on it, I said, what was the start of this for their daughter, Felicity? And he said she was in her room a lot. But he said, but I was in my room when I was young. We all did. I hibernated. I was fine. And together, it was like, oh, right, this was 2024. And back, I was like 1980s, a teenager, and you were just in your room, and you were just in your room. Now you're in your room, you're with the whole world in front of you and all the things that you are not and the never enough on social media and what you can access. So it was just such a critical moment of parents must know that now in 2025, it's not my own frame of reference to 1984 because the world has changed and just to recognize we got through it, sure, and I got through partying. Yeah, we now have fentanyl. It's just a whole other world that we have to change our lens on what we got through.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely.
Okay, number 2. So now, like right now, for parents that are struggling, and I think you're probably going to reiterate yourself, what's the critical piece of knowledge for all parents to have with the kids struggling? And it's okay if you repeat yourself. I'm wondering if you can like wrap it, like really like target it though.
I think build your kids' trust. And don't take it for granted. And when you ask how they're doing, ask how they're really doing, and don't accept fine as a response. I know we hear lots of, oh, I'm just fine. You got to dig in And you got to take the time, because they don't want to open up. They want to share, but they want to feel they're confused too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they just want a safe space to be able to say something without knowing that you're going to jump down their throat.
Yeah. You know what? They also want to be pursued. They don't say it. This came out in my research, shockingly. Like, they want us to pursue them in terms of maybe, like, I'd love just to hang out with you, or can I just sit with you, or just like pushing a little, like, not just like what you said. It's not just the fine. Don't accept the fine. But in whatever best way it is, like, push a little bit more, because we're pursuing our own children and their wellness. We're leaning in. So, okay, last question, Chris Coulter. For parents and everyone struggling with loved ones that are having mental health challenges, where is the hope? And where is the most empowering piece of knowledge that brings hope?
I think there are a lot of impassioned parents and a lot of impassioned charities. I think there's a lot of impassioned people who recognize that we're in a crisis right now, and we can't wait around for the government or the school boards to address it. It's got to be individuals like you and I, and we've got to rally people who are also equally passionate. And I think we're getting there, but it's a little more challenging to mobilize. I'm seeing a lot of positive signs that I haven't seen for a while.
Okay.
And you know what? Maybe this rallying nationalism or whatever it is. It just kind of has this different vibe right now than it has. And yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a lot of shit in the world, but at the same time, you know what? So, go ahead.
You're a part of a very awful club of people that have been impassioned because of the loss of a loved one and a child, that you're doing things with it. It's a gross club to be in, but you are changing things.
Yeah, it's affectionately referred to as the fucking awful club.
Is that what it is? Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, okay. That sounds it. Yeah. No, it's, and I think too, like, I know that we have so much aware, like, it's just that connection. Like, I my kids, that's like you, and I had hundreds of kids. I was there for 5.5 years. The common denominator was a lack of connection. Common denominator. So the hope is, it's actually not that hard. Like, connecting with your kids and leaning in and authentically listening and and accessing things that we can access for support. That's the hope.
Yeah, and here's the reality. Most of the kids make it through the teenage years. There's just an isolated number, although it's an alarming number.
Yeah, yeah.
And once you get through them and your kid kind of finds this path, this confidence, this swagger, then it kind of changes for them, right? And that, fortunately, I'm at that place right now with my eldest son, and my youngest son eventually will get there as well. But you know what? It's hard to imagine what we went through almost 10 years ago with Maddie, and where the boys are now relative to where they could have gone.
Well, from a parent to another, it's just wrong that you and I are on this stage together. Like, that I'm interviewing you about the experience that you've been through. And it's just, for me as a parent, it's just, you've walked where I can't fathom. And what I've seen in you, though, is, look, you've just done beauty from it. What you're doing to help bring that hope and support is enormous.
It's, Maddie is my guiding light. So
yeah. So where can people find you online?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can, the Finish Line Group is the name of my business. I'm in the midst of totally reworking the direction of it to tie in with my other projects. I'd probably say that the Finish Line Group, there's opportunities to be able to reach out if you want to connect with me. And I'm happy to help direct, guide, so another family doesn't experience the loss that our family's gone through.
I will put that in show notes on this. And thank you, Chris, so much for your time.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Now, you can subscribe to this channel and click like on the little link below and share this with somebody that needs to learn more about how we support mental health when our system is not doing what it needs to do. Stay tuned for next time.